And welcome back to Geno's Picks. I know we went 1-3 last week, but it's the opening week. No one knows what's going on, and we have 16 more weeks of the regular season to make you cash. And let me tell you, we ended on a high note, calling that Eagles upset. So let's get right to it, people. But first, you know what really grinds my gears? Yes, he's got a wonderful name, but Geno Smith. I get it. He's 1-0 as a starter, but for God's sakes, Geno, stop kidding yourself. You haven't ever won anything in your life. You didn't win the Jets starting quarterback job, and you certainly didn't win this game this past Sunday. You were handed both the same way because of some big moron not knowing how hard to push a terrible quarterback. And still, despite getting the hugest break ever, courtesy of Levante Davis's, I don't know what that was, unnecessary roughness call with 8 seconds left, and now instead of having to throw a Hail Mary 65 yards, you're sitting on the sideline watching Nick Folk kick the game-winning field goal. You have the goal to raise your hands in the air and throw us some attitude like you did anything. Look, we may bash Mark Sanchez here to death at Geno's Picks, but I'll tell you something. At least he did win that starting job several years back, given that was before he started reading defenses like a man reads 50 Shades of Grey. He gives it 2 quick glances and says, yeah, I got the gist. Exactly. But at least he knows most of his wins came courtesy of the Jets defense. So, Geno, learn a little humility. And if I may teach you to take one thing that Mark Sanchez can teach you, at least learn how to raise your hands in the air during a Jets game in desperation and despair. And now, Geno's Picks. My first pick, the aforementioned New York Jets are now getting 12.5 from the New England Patriots on Thursday night in Foxborough. People, both of these teams were looking to be winless after 59 minutes of football this past Sunday. But now, suddenly, this is a battle for the top of the AFC East, because I'm trying to think who told you the Dolphins aren't going to do anything. Ugh, they look terrible against the Browns, even though they won. Let me tell you, I may have just gone off on a rant on Geno Smith, but giving him 12.5 points is a lot. Am I saying he's a good QB? Hell no. But to me, you know what the sign of a bad QB is? It's someone who completes less than half of his passes, has a QBR under 50, and whose number one wide receiver is a tight end whose name doesn't begin with the letter G. Still, as much as I'd like to, I cannot blame Geno Smith for checking down when he's been given a wide receiver combo of Jeremy Curley and Stephen Hill. Now, on the other side of the ball, Tom Brady just can't seem to get enough wide receivers handed to him. He's got Danny Amendola, he's got Kenbrell Tompkins, and look at Julian Edelman coming out of the woodwork resurrecting the stud that he is. That's why you're seeing such a big line in this game, because the Jets have more crappy receivers than a PC Richards, while the Patriots have more hot receivers than a PR. Period. They steal. But this is a divisional game, and I'm telling you, Geno Smith, if he can just minimize his mistakes, especially when you have a Jets defense that held Doug Martin to 64 total yards, while the Pats defense allowed the 3-legged attack of Fred Jackson to gain 108 yards, and I say 3-legged because that includes him using his cane, I think the Jets have a good chance to hang within this game. Do they win it? No. But do they lose by a baker's dozen? Hell no. Take the Jets and lay the 12 and take the 12.5 you're getting. My next pick, the Cowboys are getting 3 from the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Yes, Dallas is coming off. Wait, I'm not sure. Joe, did Dallas win on Sunday night? So Chargers didn't win either. Dallas is coming off a win courtesy of 6 giant turnovers. And the word giant there is both a noun and an adjective, people. So you really need to decide for this game how much of those you think were the result of poor play by the Giants and great play by the Cowboys D. Well, I'm not sure of either of those. I am sure of one thing, that Alex Smith is in for much more of a difficult day than he faced against the hapless Jaguars, who are the absolute worst team in the league. In fact, half of the ESPN staff could start for that team tomorrow. And while Alex Smith is being touted, this is the word you hear, he's a great game manager. People, it's easy to manage games from sitting in the pocket behind the greatest offensive line in football. And that's what he had with the San Francisco 49ers. And let's face it, that's what he had this past Sunday, even though the Chiefs are ranked 11th or 12th by most people when you're playing the hapless Jaguars. But this Sunday, when he has to face face the likes of DeMarcus Ware, Sean Lee, and Bruce Carter, he may have to throw a couple times outside that pocket and on the run, which is his downfall because Alex Smith is like Magnum condoms. When you see him in someone's pocket, you think that the guy is a stud. But once you take them out, what good is it if they only last 5 seconds before misfiring? People take the Cowboys and the field goal. My next pick, Joe, do we even do the lock of the week anymore? No. Okay. Probably a good thing. The Denver Broncos travel to MetLife Stadium for the Manning Bowl, where they're giving the Giants 6 points. People, after watching the game this past Sunday night, I can see why you wouldn't be high on Eli Manning and his G-men, especially after watching his older brother pick apart the Super Bowl champs with a 7 TD performance Thursday night. I can't find a flaw in Denver on either side of the ball. In fact, this team is so good, they won't even take a touchdown if Peyton Manning doesn't throw it. What a bonehead. But people, don't misunderstand me. I think the Giants are still a very good team, and I think they beat themselves this past Sunday. In fact, the last time I saw someone more excited than Dallas fans over a 6-turnover performance, I was watching the Summer Olympics. But I am concerned this week for the Giants because of their absolute lack of a running game. Okay, Coughlin, you're a hard ass, and I like how it works, and sure, David Wilson fumbled twice, but can you be serious about auditioning Joe McKnight? Are you serious they signed Brandon Jacobs? Yeah. And signing Brandon Jacobs, these guys are abysmal, and all this is going to do is throw the Giants out of rhythm all week in practice, people. I think number 22 will be back at the starting position of running back by week 3, and he might even see some playing time this weekend outside the red zone. So, people, don't feel too bad if you took him fantasy-wise in your top 3 rounds. In fact, a lot of people did, including actor Tom Hanks. And does he regret it? Let's see. We go live. Tom, any regrets on your fantasy draft?
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Anyway, take the Broncos, lay the 6. Which brings me to my Double Your Money Monday Night Betters. I like to call it, even if you tried to double your money last week, you'd be doubling 0. Wow. The Cincinnati Bengals are giving a touchdown to the Pittsburgh Steelers in Cincy. Wow. Wow, how bad did the Steelers look this past Sunday? And even though the Bengals lost, you got to admit, they looked sharp because they were playing Chicago in Chicago, and there was a late bonehead play by the Bengals that took them away from a chance for a last-second score. Now, while the Steelers went down without a whimper at home to one of the worst teams and quarterbacks in football, now you've just got to sit and say, what has happened to Pittsburgh? If you ask me, it's not Ben Roethlisberger's fault, and it's not Tomlin's fault. I'm going to blame second-year OC Todd Haley, the stubborn jerk, who once again, in his stubbornness, failed to address his needs at running back, people. After Le'Veon Bell, who they're trying to rush back for week 2, and he can't come back soon enough, was ruled out for week 1 with a foot injury, rather than bringing back Jonathan Dwyer, who he cut 3 or 4 days earlier and had a pretty good preseason, was ready, was loose. Todd Haley insisted he had 4 viable running backs in Isaac Redmond, Felix Jones, Larod Stevens-Hallings, who 5 years into his career only has 1 more touchdown than he does names, and Will Johnson. Well, sorry, Todd, but running backs are like chicks, and anyone who brags that they have 4 knows they don't even have 1. And when they're finally forced to show up with 1, just because when they show up looks the best doesn't mean they aren't an absolute disaster, people. Take Cincy in this game, lay the touchdown. Those are Geno's picks.